Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Kiran for giving me the opportunity to talk on this platform. Yeah, so in this talk, we'll look into the new features which are coming up in ECMAScript 2022. So before we move on, let me introduce myself. So I'm Chetan and I'm working as a senior software engineer at Salute. I have about 9+ years of experience and I've been working in the JavaScript ecosystem for these years. I worked on Node.js, Angular, and now I'm working on React. Uh, I also like to write blogs, so mostly by my blogs include JavaScript and uh, React.js related topics. So you can know more about me on my website, Twitter, and LinkedIn profiles. So yeah, so in this talk we are going to cover this topic. So first one is the backstory of ECMAScript, and then the Tc39 process, then the new features which are coming up, and then we'll take some questions. So yeah, uh, so let's start with backstory of ECMAScript. So in 1996, when the web was evolving as well as JavaScript was evolving, some companies came up with their own versions of JavaScript, and so this had led to some discussion like what if each company comes up and has its own version of JavaScript. So to avoid that, JavaScript was submitted for standardization to this organization named ECMA International. So it deals with standardization of information and communication system. So in this ECMA International Organization, there is a committee known as Tc39 Committee. It is a group of JavaScript developers and implementers who work for evolving and defining how the JavaScript would behave. So the and the rules or standard which is developed by this committee is known as ECMAScript. So people actually get confused with what is ECMAScript, JavaScript, and all these terms. So I thought I should include this as a topic in my talk. So yeah, so ECMAScript is basically just a reference or set of rules with which are the browsers like Chrome, Safari, they take a reference to develop their own engine. And so this is why you can see that some of the features which are new are supported in some browsers but are not supported in some other browsers. Like say if they are supported in Chrome, not supported in Safari, because the control of developing or supporting the features in is with the browsers and not with like the standard has been developed, but uh, they are supported by the browsers. So yeah, more about Tc39 committee. So I think in 2015 or before that, this committee used to meet once in several years, and then they used to discuss about new features which could be added to ECMAScript. And the versions like ES1, 2, 3, this were released. But from 2015, when the ES6 was released, they started to after that they started to meet every year and add new features to ECMAScript. So this term ES 2015 or ECMAScript 2015 comes from here. Like the features which are included and in that year are named under this ECMAScript 2022, which will be included in 2022. Yeah. So this is all about the terms which are related to ECMAScript. Now let us also look into the process, the Tc39 process. So in this process, uh, so there are some features which are not supported by JavaScript currently and not supported by other languages, and people want these features to be added to JavaScript, so as to they feel that it would be important or it would be helpful. So they suggest some ideas and through proposals, and then this stage is called stage 0. Then the Tc39 committee then examines this proposal. They discuss about the problem and also the high level API. and then here they decide if we should go with this, if this feature should be included in ECMAScript. So also at this stage, an owner is defined for the proposal, so who would take the proposal ahead. Then after this stage, the proposal reaches to stage 2, where the draft version of the proposal is created, like the syntax is defined, semantics, and all the code, high level code, or the code, running code is developed here. And if this looks fine, the draft version looks fine, then the proposal reaches stage 3. So in stage 3, this is open for refinement and for feedback. Also, the proposal has to be implemented in, I think, 2 or 3 places where like it is tested and checked if it doesn't affect other libraries which are using this thing. And based on the library people or the suggestion, changes are made to the proposal at this stage. And when everything looks good here and the changes are addressed, then the proposal enters stage 4. So it is this stage where the features are finished and ready to be a part of the latest specification. So say so in the features which have reached stage 4 by March of that year, then are included to be the part of the latest specification, like the specification of that year. Say like all the features which have reached March 2022, 4 stage in March 2022 would be available or would be released in June, July, whenever the ECMAScript new version is released with the year, like ECMAScript 2022. So this is all about the process. Now we'll look into the features which will be coming up. So the most important are the class fields, then ergonomic branch checks, static block, top level await, rejects the match indices, has on property, add method, and error clause. Look into details of this. So yeah, first is the class field declaration. So classes were introduced in ECMAScript 2050, which is mostly known as ES6. So here the constructor method was used for initialization. So let me walk you through the code. Yeah. So people who are familiar with React might know about this. So initially we used to write a constructor, and in that constructor we used to initialize the fields here. The state is initialized, and we used to also bind the methods here. So if the class, there are a lot of methods in the class, then this constructor becomes huge and it doesn't look good. And binding each method is also troublesome. We a lot of times we forget of binding these methods, and we get unexpected results. So this syntax was simplified in ECMAScript 2022, where the initialization of the fields is done at the top, and we don't have to bind the methods, so we can directly use with using the arrow function. You might be thinking that we already are using this type of syntax, then how is it a feature which is yet to be standardized? So yeah, so if you have created React application using create React app, then this feature is already enabled by default in that package. Similarly, if your project is using plugins like Babel preset or anything, these also have the class fields and private methods enabled by default. So we can use this new syntax there. So this is all about the public class instance fields, the new syntax which came up. Now let's move on to the other topic, private instance fields, accessors, and methods. So JavaScript lacked this functionality, the feature to make fields and method private since its start. And so people came up with their own, with some conventions to make some fields and methods private. So they would add underscore to denote that this field is private. But if you see that these even those fields which have been marked or which have been prefixed with underscore, they are fully accessible. So this doesn't makes sense that this is not safe. This is not private field. So in ECMAScript 2022, this private instance fields, accessor and methods were introduced. We make these fields private by adding a hash to them. So let us see this in the code. So yeah, here this is the class which has constructor, and this is a field which is prefixed with underscore. Here we are just following the convention, but when we try to access this field using the instance like user.phone, we get the output like we are able to access the phone number here. So if I try to run this, yeah, accessing phone with private name convention, this phone number is accessible. So basically this is not a private field. Then with the new feature added, we have made this phone number as private, prefixing with hash and initializing the phone number. Also the accessor is made private, and this is the private method and this is the public method. So again, when we create a new instance and we try to access the public method, this is available. So we get the output whatever this prints, and phone number is accessible. But now if we try to print uh, private phone number intro, which is private, as well as phone and the phone number accessor, all these are private, we get a syntax error here. Let me run this. So we get this error: private field phone number intro must be declared in an enclosing class. So this is how we are not able to access the private method. Now coming up with the inheritance. So private fields are also not accessible in the subclasses. Here in the example, this is the parent class and admin is the child class. Here we are trying to access the um, private field, which is phone. And again, if we run this, we'll get a syntax error that this must be declared in the enclosing class. And okay, now let us look into the limitations of private fields. So basically, one thing we need to note is private field should be declared at the top here, and then initialization can be done in the constructor. If we try to declare the if we do not declare, or if we try to use the private field here and initialize it, then it gives a syntax error. Again, the same thing. Sorry, I think this came from outside. Okay, so yeah, this will also throw an error. The other thing is private fields cannot be deleted. Now again, the phone number field is private, and if we try to delete this, then again we get a syntax error: private fields cannot be deleted. So yeah, a lot of work has been done related to private fields, and in the new ECMAScript 2022. Now let us move ahead. Okay, so this new ergonomic brand checks for private fields. This is also a new feature added. So when we try to access the public fields in an object, we get undefined. And similarly, if we try to access the private fields in an object, this throws an error. So what if we want, there is a use case that we want to handle, or we want to add a fallback when the private field is not in that object. So in that case, there is a alternative. So that we can do using try and catch. So this is the class. We are checking here if this phone number is there in this object, and if not, then throw an error. Otherwise, we'll print the phone number. Uh, okay, so here we catch this error in try catch, and then in the catch we add the fallback, or however we want to handle the result. So here I have created this is static method, so accessing using the class name, and this is the new instance which is created, and which is passed to phone number, this object, and then it checks object dot phone. So currently this class has phone, so this will print the number, this will print this message. Now if we are passing an empty object here, it doesn't have phone number, so it will come here and it will throw an error, and that error gets caught here, and we can see not applicable will be the console logged here. This is phone number, and okay, yeah, with gas not applicable. Okay, so this also printed all the things. Okay, now let's move on to the new in operator which is provided in ES 2022. So similar example, again we have instead of that check, this check, we have added uh, uh, hash phone in like phone number in object. So if that field is present, it will print this, otherwise not applicable. So you can see that this syntax, or this addition of the in operator makes the code very simpler and pretty as compared to using the try and catch. Similar behavior, like when we pass new instance as the object, then we can access the phone number here. But if we pass an empty object, then it prints not applicable. Okay, and this is a different use case. So we have created a class with a phone number as a private field, and it has value 111. Now we are trying to call phone number field with this new class instance now, and we check what the result is. So when we call this, when we run this, actually what the result we get is not applicable. Even if this class has the field phone number, but still we are not like we get the result as not applicable. This is because the this phone number and this phone number are different. So so this object doesn't have this phone number. So that is why the result we get is not applicable. Yeah, so this is quite confusing, but this is how it behaves. Yeah, so this is all about the new operator in operator. Then we have static fields and private static methods. So this is similar to the oops like in other languages like Java, which have static fields and all those things. So the fields which we want to exist per class and not per instance, like then we use the static class methods and fields, and the use cases for this is caching and fixed configuration. So basically static public fields were introduced in ES 21 like ES 2015, but the support for remaining static fields are in ES 2022. So static public fields, private fields, and private method. So let us look into the example. Here we have a class named shape, and it has static field color, and the static method get color and get message as a public method. So the static fields can be accessed by class itself. So if we try to access shape.color, we will get blue. If we try to access shape.getColor, that is the static method, we'll get again blue. Now, if we try to access the static fields using instances, then we get undefined, because static methods are to be called on class names. So this we created an instance, shape instance, and trying to call color and trying to call get color. So both will give undefined. Yeah, and then this also the similar concept, like only the static methods can access static fields. So get color is a static method. So it is able to access this color, which is also a static field. But now if we try to call this get message, which is non-static method, it cannot access this dot color. So this will throw an error, but this can be fixed. Like if we add here, like instead of referring through this, we could add the class name here, like shape.color. Then what about the inheritance in public static fields? So like the public fields, public static fields are also can also be inherited from the parent class. So now we have this rectangle class, which is inherited from shape. And if we try to access rectangle.color, color again is a public static field, and get color is also public static field. We are able to get the expected output, that is blue. Now, what about static private fields? Similar to class private fields, we also have static private fields, and they are also accessed, or they are prefixed with hash. So the difference only is that here we add static as well with the private field name. So this is the class which has static private field color, and get color is the method. Get message is the public method. So now if we try to access this with the class name, the private static field and the method, we get an error here. So the private fields, be it normal class fields or static fields, are not accessible outside the class. Now let us look into the inheritance for private static fields and methods. So, so the private static fields are not inherited in the class, in the subclass. Uh, so here again, the get color, color, get color message, and we have this non-static method, get message non-static, and we rectangle subclass is the child class of shape parent. Now we are trying to access the public static method of uh, on this child class. So here we get the error. We cannot access the private method because this get message it tries to access the private method. Sorry, the private field here, which it cannot access, which it doesn't have access to in rectangle subclass. So this throws an error. Then similarly, when we try to call the non-static method, it will throw an error. So yeah, this is all about the static fields, private and public. Now let us move ahead. Now there is a new feature, class static block. So all these static things are very confusing. And on top of that, this class static block is also added in this uh, new release. So but it helps when we are so static class static blocks are useful when we want to evaluate a static field based on the previous static field which is defined in the class. So there this makes the initialization elegant or easier. So let's see how this is done. So now we have this class person without static block. It has PAN number as static, and this is the field is eligible for loan. This is the static field. So this field we calculate this field based on this PAN number field. So one way to so there is some logic on calculating this field. This logic is in this function calculate eligibility for loan, and it takes PAN number. And so there would be some complex logic for calculating loan eligibility, like CIBIL score and expenditure, checking the expenditure and all those things. But for simplicity, I am returning true from here. Now the one way was that we could add try catch here and then initialize this evaluate this and then initialize this to this is eligible for loan field. But this doesn't like we are not allowed to add try catch here. It throws an exception. So we have to move this try catch out of the class. It comes here. So here is eligible for loan is initialized to the result calculated from this function, and we pass the pan number here. So the first field is used to calculate the second field here. Okay. Now how this can be done with class static block. Okay. Um, so again here we have pan number is eligible for loan, all these fields here which are static. Then we add a static block with static with the block like the curly braces, and we are assigning this is eligible for loan field by calculating the calculating or by calling this function which we where we pass pan number. So we get the result, and we are like this value is assigned to is eligible for loan. So look at uh, the code here. So we have to write try catch and look at this. We just it can be done in like couple of lines, which improves the readability, simplifies the code. So this is how the static class static block helps us. Now there is the feature which static block has, like it has access to the private static fields. Now similar to the above example, we have these two fields. We have a constructor for initialization of pan card, and we have the static block where we get the pan card number. This is private. Now we are initializing the class with the pan card, and again here we have this get loan eligibility which takes an object. So taking the object, it will fetch the pan card number from here. So this pan card can access the private static private variable, that is private field, that is pan number, sorry. So using that we get the pan number here, and we use that to calculate the eligibility, and this result then is stored in is eligible for loan. So yeah, so basically the static blocks have privileged access to private state, maybe private fields, maybe they could be instance private or static private. So yeah, so this is also very helpful, and this is all about static blocks. Let us move on. Okay, so this is other topic, top level await. This is a very cool feature, and which is coming up. So like when we want to use await, we have to wrap that function or wrap that code and with async function. So every time we do that, we have to use async function. So this new feature then simplifies this syntax with top level await. Let us look into that. So I have this node application as a basic one, and this is the uh, here we have fetch the we are calling the API to fetch the users. Now we have we have called this fetch users. Fetch users is an async function, and then we wait for the API to give response, and then we return the response. This is one method. Then the other method which people use is immediately invoke function. So we have added this. So this is the we call this in an async function, and then we add a wait and fetch the result. So now this these were the options available, but now there is a more efficient option, that is like we can use top level await, or with the top level await feature we can simplify this. We are waiting for the response of this users API, and then we return this. Here we are importing the users. Here the like the promise, like all till the result is like till we get the result, then this the code doesn't execute, like it has to wait till we get the users. So this is how uh, the simplified the syntax. And the use cases for this are like when we are trying to load modules dynamically, like we want I18 language, we can use this await, just await. Then resource initialization, like connect for the DB connection and all. Here, there we can use await, directly use await. Similarly, for the dependency fallback, like if the translation for French is not available, then fall back to this EN translation. So all these are the um, use cases for top level await. Okay, let's move ahead. This is also a small addition to regex match indices. So regular expressions we use for matching the text with some pattern, and we have two available functions like regex expression execute and string.matchAll, which returns the matches. And also here we also get the indices of the match string. Only this, but we get the start index, not the end index. So in this ECMAScript 2022, we have a new available flag, uh, a D flag, which also provides us with the start and the end indices of the match string. So let us see the example. Yeah, so simple example. Here, that string to be tested is this hat is better than that hat, and we have the pattern as th, and then anything can come here, and space, and then hat, and the regular expression, that is the global flag. And we are using match all syntax to match the pattern, and so this we'll see the result without d, and in this we have added the flag along with the global flag, and we'll compare both the results now. So with the first, without the d flag, the result will be so this is the match string, this hat is, and it has the index, so the start index, which is 0, and this is the input which we have entered, and similarly the second array, that hat, which was match, and the at second, the parenthesized the string, and then this is okay. Now this is without the d flag. Now let us see the results by with the d flag included. So other things are similar. 0, this hat, it has 1, groups index, again the start index, and the new key added is indices. So it is an array which gives start index, so 0, this is the start index, and this is the end index. So this had 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So here it ends, so the end index. Similarly for that, 2 and 4 is the start and the end index. So this flag would be useful in the cases where we also want the result or the index of the end, like the end index of the match string. So this is just a small addition. Then we have object.hasOn. So it takes object and then the property. So this property, the method is useful to check if the object has a particular property or not. So we already have object.prototype.has own property in JavaScript, which checks for this. But this has some limitations, or has own property has some limitations that it doesn't work with when we are creating object using object.create, and it has a null, object.create null. So let us see how has on helps here. So this is the object, mobile object, which has model and type, and model with name a and type null. Now how with the uh, object dot prototype dot has on, we'll see how we check this if the property is present in the object. So we have extracted this out, object dot prototype dot has on property, then we call, and then this is the object and this is the type, and then we see if this is present, then it will print that it has the property model. Now how has on simplifies the code. So object.has_on, again it takes just the object and the property name, and that's it. So like this much syntax and this much syntax. So this just it has just simplified this syntax. Also with has on, if we have a property which has value as null or undefined, still we can use that. So it gives us true, like the property is present in the object, but its value can be anything. It can be null, undefined, or anything, any other string or something. So in that case it returns true. Has on this method returns false if the object is the field is not present or the property is not present in the object. This is one case, and the other one is if the properties are inherited. So let us see how. So this one is simple: mobile and memory. Memory was not added to this object, so it returned false. Now toString. So basically toString is an inherited property for object. It is already present in the, it should be already present, but still it returns false because has on only checks the properties which are belonging to its object, not the inherited ones. Again, now this is so even if we try to re-implement the has on property. So now say this is circle is an object. It has property has on property. So basically object dot prototype dot has on property, that is still there. And if we try to override this with our custom implementation, still has on method will not create a problem, and we would get the result like whatever true or false, whatever we are checking for. And yeah, so this is important behavior why has on was introduced. So now when we create an object dot create null, and we try to access the like we try to check with has on property that it does it have some property like say prop. So with has on property it will create it will throw an error, syntax error. This is because object dot create will create an object, but it will not inherit the properties from object dot prototype. So these properties won't be available here in object dot create. So so it throws an error with has on property, but with using object dot has on will get whatever the result is, true, false, whatever we want to check. Yeah, so this is all related to object and checking its properties. Now let's move on to the other topic. Okay, the addition of at method in array, string, and typed array. So so languages like Ruby, Python had this method for accessing the elements of array in a reverse order, or even as like by providing a negative index they could access the elements however they want, like from the end or start. So if positive index was provided, then from start, otherwise from if negative index from the end. But this property or this method was missing in JavaScript. This is because of the JavaScript design problems, or design how JavaScript was designed to handle object as well as array. So all those, let's not go into that detail. Okay, so ECMAScript 2022 added this add property which takes index. It could be either positive or negative. So let us see the example. So suppose sorted list is an array of numbers which are in a sorted order. So the largest one is at the end. Now, if we want to access, if you want to get the largest element in the sorted list, uh, we could do this. Like we had this sorted list, then access the last element of the array using sorted list dot length minus 1. And to get the second largest, we could just do minus 2. So this is basically the index, or it could be n here. uh, so looking at the syntax, we can see that the array name is repeated. The syntax, if the array name is large, so now this is medium array name. Like if we use a large array name, then again this would affect the readability. And also for anonymous values, this is difficult to calculate. We also have another method, that is slice, which returns a new array, and it also supports negative indexing. So sorted list dot slice dot minus 1 to get the last element, and then as it returns new array, we have to get the element, we have to access the zeroth element. So this is quite we may forget to write this, and this may lead to wrong output. So this syntax also looked a little weird. So a new syntax was introduced. So a new method was introduced. At here we can access the last element simply by specifying the negative index, and the second last by specifying the second last negative index. So just this makes the life a lot easier. Yeah, this is all about the at method. Now the last topic for this talk is the error cause. So we generally use the error constructor to report for the errors which occur during runtime. And so if there are a lot of nested errors, or that time we need to wrap those errors. Like if you want to see what is the cause of the error, or where this error has been from, so we wrap in if else and all those things, we do all those things. So it makes a code little bit complicated. So this ES 2022 has introduced a new property cause, which could be added to error constructor here. So in this example, we have this data, which is a JSON data, but not a this is array of objects, but this is an empty object. Now we try to pass this JSON, and it throws an error. So we throw this error along with the cause property, and we catch the error here. So this we see the where exactly and what exactly is the cause of the error. So this is the customized error. Along with that, we also get the cause, that there was a syntax error while passing. Yeah, so this is all about the error constructor. Yeah, I think we have covered all the topics. The snippet which I have used, or which I have shown, are added here in the GitHub. And for this talk, I have referred to the ECMAScript finished proposals, then the process, and the examples, and then taken the examples. Tried to use real-time examples to explain the features. Yeah, so I think this is all for the talk. Um, mm, Let me know if you have any questions.